Hi guys, it's Alan here. I wanted to talk a bit about education. Education is the foundation, the bedrock of our society, of our culture, everything. Now, society and civilization and industry and science is forever evolving and it's getting faster and faster. But it does seem sometimes like our education system is not much further forward than the Victorian era. And I think they need to try and gear up for the future. I know we can't tell what the future is going to bring, but we could do something to sort of lean that way. Anyway, it's just my thoughts. But let's get into it, shall we? Well, it doesn't look like rain. It's such a clear night, a lovely night. Now, education. Education begins from the cradle. There's no doubt about that. It's what forms us into what we are. It sets us on that path that's gonna form our life, and we can easily be thrown off that path. So it's a very important thing, and that means that parents really need to look after their children, to teach them and give them guidelines. And I think that it should be important that all children have a father and a proper family. I know today that's kind of asking for a lot, but parents need to guide their children and they need to give them boundaries. And the reason for this is if a toddler looks at the big wide world and thinks, wow, that's scary. It wants to find out, it wants to explore, but it can be a bit afraid. Now, if its parent is strict, it will feel it's a big unsafe world, but my parents are strong enough to protect me. And if a parent is too easy with a child, I believe that it can make the child a bit insecure, a little bit. You just need boundaries and guidelines. They need to understand more about how to become an adult, develop themselves. Look, I know kids don't like to be disciplined. They hate it and they often go into a tantrum. And parents don't like seeing their children upset, especially mothers. They don't like to see their kid upset. But the trouble is, if you give in to them for an easy life, you won't have an easy life. It's bringing up children is a job in itself, and they need discipline. They need discipline if they're going to respect authority later on, and it's difficult. And when they have a tantrum, mothers don't like seeing children going, "I hate you, I hate you, I hate you." Now, children soon forget. They forget very quickly, within the hour. Worst ways next day. So don't worry about that. You need to discipline them. I was quite strict with mine. I had a couple of kids, and I used to have a cane in each room, just a split cane, a garden cane, and I never had to use it. Just threaten with it, and instant obedience. Never had to use it, but kids really do need discipline. Have you ever seen a child in a supermarket screaming, laying on the floor, kicking its heels because it can't get what it wants? That's anger. You've got to train them out of that. Anger's no good. It's no good. Discipline means, as I say, I threaten mine with a cane. You can't just steam in and slap the kids. You must never hit a child with your hand. You can do more damage. My little stick would sting if I ever used it, but would not do any damage. And these parents who just beat their children easily, quickly, for very little reason, the kid grows up thinking, feeling that it can get what it wants through violence. So discipline has to be done in an orderly way, that where the child knows exactly what it's being punished for, and it will learn, and it won't happen again. The kids learn very well. You've got to get anger, train them out of anger. That's not a very good. That's not a very good thing for them. Now, in case you're wondering how comes I seem to be up on that sort of subject, it's been really my lifelong interest. Ever since school, I've wondered why people are so unreliable. And I learned later on that most people don't like giving a rejection. So they say yes when they mean no. How confusing is that? Anyway, so in my 50s, I mean, my schooling was very bad. I did quite poor at school. I left at 16. I took the GCE and CSEs, and my results were pretty poor because I couldn't concentrate in class. I mean, in the 50s and 60s, schooling was actually boring anyway. I just couldn't concentrate. My mind was everywhere. Teachers shouting at me to wake up. So yeah, I'm a dreamer, always has been. Still, Einstein said if it wasn't for dreamers, we'd still be in the trees. What about that? We do need dreamers. And when I got to my 50s, I took a year out and I trained to be a counsellor. I studied psychology at OU, and I read all the books on the subject of psychology and counselling. I read many books on psychology and also self-development. Now, these are quite interconnected because it's all to do with the subconscious. I actually made a video on the subconscious, but I read books on counselling and self-development books like Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Games People Play by Eric Berne, and I even read History of Western Philosophy. That was an interesting read. So yeah, I studied quite a bit on the subject. So you know, I've got some knowledge. I've seen a few years. This year, 2024, I'm 74, born in 1950 in the East End of London. Now, the 60s were my teen years, and they were the best years this country's ever seen. Now, I know us old fogies always talk about the past, but look outside and you'll see what I mean. Now, there used to be gang fights. It was not uncommon, but I never knew anyone who got killed or stabbed or anything like that. It was just young men letting off steam. What can they do today? Youth clubs are gone. What happened to the Boy Scouts? They're not about, are they? And I don't think that's not cool, is it? Why don't you join the Boy Scouts, son? Fuck off! No, that's not cool. To change the subject perhaps a little bit, does anybody remember the Lockerbie bombings, where a jumbo jet was blown out the sky by a terrorist bomb? At the time, the Daily Mail, for instance, had 4 pages on it and huge full-page photos of this disaster. And normally, when there's a plane crash, there's not much left to see. But being blown up in the sky, it fell, and there was a lot remaining. And even some of the most scary, horrible photos. And the air disasters are terrible things anyway. And this particular one, look, even the windows in the cockpit looked like they were still intact. Pretty scary, I thought. Now, I thought, supposing that was never publicised, surely the terrorists who want to terrorise people, the clue's in the name, Would they bother doing it again if it didn't have any effect? But I know you can't, something like that you can't cover. It was just an idea at the time. And nowadays, I think about the school shootings in America. There's been, I think, 46 altogether. Now, for that to enter a kid's brain, oh, I think I'll get a gun and go in and shoot some kids. That's incredible. How does that ever enter a kid's head? Let alone 46 of them. And I reckon most of those are copycat shootings. So it just shows you kids are easily influenced. Kids are very easily influenced. And if you think about it, children learn faster than adults and haven't yet formed their identity. I don't think that we form our identity until we've left education and we've been a year or two in employment, getting out in the big wide world and finding out what it's all about. So they're easily influenced, and that's why grooming gangs are so successful. You think about that as well. And children tend to want to identify with something. They don't normally want to be exactly like their parents. They're looking for some sect or some group that they can join and be part of. And if you don't believe me, when I left school, we had Teddy Boys, then we had Mods and Rockers, then we had Skinheads, then we had hippies, then we had punks. I lost track of it after that. But they're all groups, and kids are looking to join something, to identify with something. Again, this is why grooming gangs, when they know what they're doing, they succeed very well. So it's easy to program a kid's brain. And again, if you think about it, if you prayed 5 times a day all your life, you would be just, no one could change your mind. You'd be programmed, and you'd be easily convinced to blow yourself up, taking others with you. I mean, what sort of mentality is that? But it just shows you how you can influence the subconscious, and you can do it yourself to your own subconscious and change your life. It's not easy. It takes a lot of persistence and repetition. Yeah, and it's easy to indoctrinate kids, brainwash them. I mean, look what they do with Russian kids. That's pretty grim. They're producing a generation of mindless, heartless killers. What is that all about? I mean, maths, for instance. Our old Prime Minister Sunak said, we should teach more maths. What is the point of that? What is the point of that? We've got computers, calculators on our phones. AI that is moving forward and taking a lot of necessary maths from us. Obviously, the basics have got to be learned, but once kids get into secondary school, maybe after the first year, I think other things should be taught. But I mean, you think about it, you buy something online, what happens? The computer program takes your payment, it puts it into the accounts. At the end of the year, it produces a profit and loss, and it sends a dispatch label to the warehouse. When we've got unskilled labour, just sticking a label on a box. Perhaps we should import more unskilled labour. No, maybe not. Maybe not. Where was I? Yeah, so I don't think that we need as much of what we've been doing with things like history and geography. English is important, English grammar, because kids today are just useless at grammar. But some of that could be cut back. And I think we could teach them life skills, how to save for their old age. That's looking more and more important today. How to invest money, how to survive a marriage, how to bring up children. There's so many things that we could teach to develop people into good citizens and good parents. We don't really need full-on maths as we have it, because you can learn, normally you can learn when you start the job. There's no way, nothing in schools that teach you how to do a specific job. It's general knowledge. And general knowledge, he says in, Napoleon Hill says in Think and Grow Rich, general knowledge is not important. Not important if you want to gain wealth, because he says, look at university professors. They're some of the most educated people in the world, and yet they're no Elon Musk. They're not the richest. So general education is not important. Specific education is important. And I believe you learn more once you start work. We need more life skills. Once you, and this actually happened to me, I'll tell you. I left school, my maths was useless. And we had pounds, shillings and pence and dealt in fractions. And that's very common. You can't put pounds, shillings and pence into a computer. And it wasn't until the very last knock-ins that my school said anything about, or tried to teach me about decimals. And I didn't really understand it. I thought, you move the full stop and you've multiplied by 10. How does that work? You know, I just didn't understand. But my second job, I worked for stockbrokers. And I had to, once a fortnight, work out all the trade bargains. No, you say you might have 285,000 shares at 21 and 10 pence halfpenny. I had to, I knew nothing about decimals. I had tables, and I had to convert the pounds, shillings and pence into decimals, and then put it into a machine and multiply it. And this machine was not a calculator like you know. It was like the size of a electric typewriter. Had a carriage that moved at the top. It's electrically driven, but all mechanical. So you put the numbers in the big bank and then multiply it down the side, and the carriage moved along for tens, hundreds, thousands. And then I had to convert the answer back into pounds, shillings and pence. And it wasn't long before I didn't need the tables. And sometimes I even looked at the answer and I thought, well, that don't look right. And I'd redo it and it was wrong. So the old brain starts to pick things up quite easily when you need to apply them to a specific situation, to a job. So I don't think we need to teach all that much in schools. Life skills, investment. And I think that would change society. That would improve and accelerate where we're going. There shouldn't be any doubt about that. I would teach, I mean, I think like if you're teaching sex education, it should be contraception only, and perhaps how to bring up a child, but none of this gender bullshit and any other deviance. That's a no-no to kids, because as I say, they are easily influenced. Now, I mean, I'm fairly easygoing. I don't care what you do at home, in private, behind locked doors, with consenting adults. That's fine. But don't come out waving fucking flags, because the rest of us don't want to know. It's just, we just don't want to know. So schooling is important, but it has to be better than it is. Something has to change. We've got to reform school completely, because all this wokeness and lefties are just going down the wrong track. Kids are being thrown off and they just want this gender thing. It's another thing about this looking for something different, for change, and it shouldn't be put in front of kids. And that's where it's going wrong today, I think. We need good old-fashioned education with life skills. So what do you think of that? You learn in your job. You learn in your job, and we need dreamers. We need dreamers. Like me? No. I mean, I went on. I had poor education, but I've gone on to publish 2 novels and an ebook on back pain. And when you think about it, look at Steve Jobs. He had a dream. He dreamt of the smartphone, but he wasn't a genius. He just had a dream. He got technicians to program it. So you've got dreamers and technicians, but the technicians wouldn't be a lot of good without dreamers. We need ideas, futuristic ideas, and then get them to work. Now, if I had my way and any say in school curriculum, I would have schools teach Buddhism. Now, before you kick off about being a Christian country, Buddhism is not a religion. There's no God. There's no celestial heavenly being. It's just a way of life. And surprised me the fact that Buddhism is very close to modern day self-development. Amazingly close. It's the Buddha's path to enlightenment is about getting rid of our bad emotions like anger, jealousy, envy, and greed. So the other amazing thing is the fact that he was teaching this a long time ago. See, Christianity taught with the fear of God. It's not really teaching, is it? They said, if you don't do what the church says, you will burn in hell for eternity. Oh, fuck that. What do you want me to do? You know, people 2,000 years ago were pretty primitive, close to barbaric, uneducated. There wasn't many people educated 2,000 years ago. So superstitious people will respond to that. They'll believe it. They'll roast in hell for eternity. The amazing thing is that Buddha had no fear of God. He didn't say you'd burn in hell. There was no fear of God. And he still built one of the biggest followings on earth. And I find that quite amazing. Yeah, it's a bit archaic. I mean, he was born 600 years before Christ and still built this following. But he said things like, anger is like holding a red hot coal to throw at someone, but only you will get burnt. 3 things will not be long hidden: the sun, the truth, and the moon. The truth, you see. Yeah, I think one of the most amazing guys to walk this earth. But anyway, that's just like my ideas still. So to summarize, what we need is entrepreneurs, dreamers. Think James Watt, the steam engine, Frank Whittle, the jet engine, and thousands of others. And they were all told it couldn't be done. But we need dreamers, and also children are very susceptible to influence. They're very easily influenced. You've got to remember that we've got to protect them, not keep bombarding them with stupid ideas. Because I don't know whether it's a desire for attention, a cry for attention, or just the copycat thing. So we got to steer them away from these crazy ideas that they're being bombarded with. So anyway, I hope that's food for thought. And if you're still with us, you're a glutton for punishment. It's been quite a difficult, complex subject to try and get across the picture of influence, what makes us people we are. So if you'd like to give us a like, even better, subscribe if you can. But that's food for thought, just my ideas, and let me know what you think. Thanks for watching anyway. Cheers, bye.